Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel Global Panorama Real Time. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 3 years, the war in Ukraine has gone through many phases, with various weapons changing the face of the battlefield, from Javelin anti-tank missiles and HIMARS rocket artillery to Storm Shadow cruise missiles. But all those weapons may be overshadowed by a legendary name, an icon of American long-range power: the Tomahawk cruise missile. Washington's serious discussion about the possibility of supplying Tomahawks to Kyiv is not merely a new military aid package. This is a move that could cross every red line ever drawn, a step that has the potential to completely reshape the nature and scale of the war. In today's analysis, we will delve into three key questions. How powerful is the Tomahawk really, and how is it different from what Ukraine currently possesses? How will Ukraine's target map change, and what impact will this have on Russia's strategy? And, most importantly, why has President Donald Trump had a 180-degree change of heart, and what is the real geopolitical chess game behind this decision? Part 1. Tomahawk, a reach beyond the horizon. To understand the importance of the Tomahawk, we must first understand what it is. The Tomahawk is not a ballistic missile that flies in an arc. It is a subsonic cruise missile that hugs the terrain, flying at a very low altitude, just a few tens of meters above the ground. This turns it into a phantom for enemy air defense radar systems, which are designed to detect high-altitude targets. Let's make a brief comparison. The Storm Shadow scalp missiles provided to Ukraine by the UK and France have a range of about 500 kilometers. The US ATACMS missile is only in the 300-kilometer range. These weapons have helped Ukraine effectively strike targets in Crimea and Russia's rear areas. But the Tomahawk is in a completely different league. With a range of up to 2,500 kilometers and carrying a 450-kilogram warhead, it is not just a quantitative step up, but a qualitative leap. From Ukrainian territory, a Tomahawk can reach most major cities in the European part of Russia, including the capital Moscow and the former capital St. Petersburg. It opens up a dimension of attack that Kyiv could never have dreamed of before. Simply put, if HIMARS allows Ukraine to strike Russia's tactical logistics and Storm Shadow strikes its operational logistics, then the Tomahawk will allow Ukraine to strike directly at the enemy's strategic nerve center. Part 2. Rewriting the target map and the Kremlin's headache. So, with this extended arm, what can Ukraine do? First, neutralize the threat from Russia's strategic air force. Currently, Russia uses air bases deep within its territory, such as Engels or Shaikovka, as launch points for strategic bombers like the Tu-95 and Tu-160 to fire cruise missiles into Ukraine. With the Tomahawk, these bases would be well within range. This would force Russia to face a horrifying choice: either risk having hundreds of millions of dollars worth of aircraft destroyed on the ground, or be forced to relocate its entire strategic bomber fleet further east, possibly beyond the Ural Mountains. This relocation would dramatically increase flight times, fuel costs, and aircraft wear and tear, thereby significantly reducing the frequency and effectiveness of missile attacks on Ukraine. This is a blow to Russia's air power capabilities without shooting down a single plane. Second, strike defense industrial centers. Many factories producing weapons, ammunition, and critical military components for Russia are located in industrial cities within the Tomahawk's range. Attacking these facilities would disrupt the supply chain, slowing down the production of new weapons and the replacement of battlefield losses. Third, create a true deterrent balance. The chairman of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation, Serhiy Kuzan, stated it perfectly. If Russia has long-range cruise missiles, Ukraine must have a similar capability to strike targets at the same range. Until now, Russia has always been in an asymmetrical position. It can attack any city in Ukraine without fear of symmetrical retaliation. The Tomahawk would change that. For the first time since the war began, the threat of war would no longer be a distant concept on TV for the people of Moscow. As one U.S. official said, this would scare the Russians more than most other things we could do. The psychological and political pressure on the Kremlin would be immense. Part 3. The Political Chess Game and Donald Trump's Shift. So, why is Washington considering such a risky move? The answer lies in the incredible shift in President Donald Trump's viewpoint. Just a few months ago, Trump was talking about Ukraine having to cede territory, stating that Crimea will stay with Russia. But after his meeting with President Zelensky on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, he wrote on social media that Ukraine is in a position to win and take back the entirety of Ukraine. This change is not random. It reflects a new strategic calculation. 1. Trump may have realized that a quick victory is impossible, and allowing Russia to win or retain occupied territories would be a geopolitical defeat for the U.S. By greenlighting a decisive weapon, he wants to create maximum pressure to force Russia to the negotiating table from a weaker position. 2. This is how Trump demonstrates leadership and puts pressure on European allies. By overseeing a new NATO-funded program, PURL, the U.S. supplies the weapons and Europe pays. This is a way of fulfilling his Europe must pay more while maintaining America's decisive influence. We must also remember that the administration of former President Joe Biden rejected this request, fearing it would escalate the conflict. This shows the difference in doctrine, one of caution and incremental steps to avoid direct confrontation, the other of boldness, willing to take great risks for great rewards. Conclusion: on the brink of change. The provision of Tomahawks to Ukraine, if it happens, will be one of the most significant decisions of the entire war. It will grant Kyiv an unprecedented deep strike capability, potentially changing the military balance and forcing Russia to recalculate its entire strategy. However, this is also a double-edged sword. Escalation is a tangible risk. Russia will certainly retaliate forcefully, and the world will face a new phase of tension. But perhaps, after more than 3 years of a grinding war, Washington has concluded that the risk of not acting decisively is greater than the risk of escalation. The decision on the fate of these Tomahawk missiles in the coming weeks will not only determine the future of the war, but could also reshape the security order of Europe for decades to come. That's all for today's analysis. We'll see you on the next podcast. Please press like and subscribe to the channel to follow our latest analyses.